Hey guys, tonight we're doing something a little different. It's still dark, still miserable, still packed with enough historical suffering to make your mattress feel like a 5-star hotel. But instead of medieval Europe, we're going to a place where it's hotter, wetter, louder, and somehow even worse. Welcome to northeast India, circa 1944. You've just been sent to one of the most brutal, exhausting, and poorly understood battles of World War II, Imphal and Kohima. Don't worry, there's still plenty of mud, malnutrition, and highly questionable decisions from military leadership. But now we've added monsoons, jungle warfare, and a generous helping of tropical diseases for flavour. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe if you find this kind of thing soothing in a wow, at least I'm not them kind of way. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I'm always curious which corner of the world is joining me for a gentle descent into historical misery. Lights off, fan on, maybe grab a blanket. Though after what you're about to hear, you might not want anything that even remotely resembles a military-issued wool sheet. Get comfortable, or as comfortable as you can, considering we're about to walk straight into the mosquito-infested nightmare that was the Burma front. And with that, welcome to the jungle. You wake up sweating, not gently, not with a dewy forehead and a romantic glisten like in the movies. No, you wake up like someone just dumped a bucket of hot soup on your face. Because here, in the hills around Imphal and Kohima, the air is so thick with humidity it could be bottled and sold as a seasoning paste. It's not even sunrise yet, but you're already drenched. Your uniform, the one you've been wearing for 3 weeks straight, is clinging to your body like a wet napkin made of sandpaper. It itches, it smells, and there's a colony of unidentified insects currently hosting a conference near your collarbone. You try not to move too much, because any shift in your position will activate a network of pain in your lower back, your neck, your knees, and your sanity. But lying still isn't much better, because the second you stop swatting, the jungle resumes contact. The bugs here don't bite. They invade. They don't buzz politely past your ear. They land, crawl in, and set up long-term residency. You can't tell if the squelch you hear is sweat dripping, or another leech detaching itself after breakfast. Welcome to the Burma campaign. The year is 1944. You're somewhere on the India-Burma border, stuck in one of the bloodiest, muddiest, most miserable battles of World War II. And you're not special. You're one of about 250,000 troops, crammed into a mountain jungle that doesn't care about your name, your plans, or your digestive system. You probably don't even know exactly where you are. Coordinates don't matter here. The map is a vague suggestion. The trail you hiked yesterday has been washed away by the rain. And the rain hasn't even started yet. That's later. Your boots are soaked. Of course they are. They've been soaked for so long, you're pretty sure you've grown new toes just to keep up with the rot. You've stopped trying to dry them out. There's no point. The mud here isn't regular mud. It's alive. It's clingy. It pulls your legs like it's trying to drag you back down into the earth. Sometimes it wins. The last guy who slipped didn't get pulled out for 12 hours. By then, the medics weren't sure whether he needed stitches or an exorcist. The smell hits next. You think you'd be used to it by now, but you're not. No one is. Because it's not just one smell. It's layers. A base note of mildew, a middle layer of old sweat, and top notes of gun oil, feet, and something vaguely decomposing that no one's been able to locate yet. You breathe through your mouth, which is worse. because now you can taste it. And surprise, it tastes exactly like it smells, but warmer. The jungle's always noisy. Always. Not the pleasant kind of forest noises. Not chirping birds and gentle breezes. This is a 24/7 sonic assault. Screaming insects, rustling leaves that sound exactly like footsteps, distant shouting, and sometimes closer shouting that turns into screaming and then silence. The kind of silence that makes your stomach drop before you even turn around. Somewhere out there are Japanese troops. Somewhere out there are your own. The difference between the two is often measured in minutes or miscommunication. You can't see more than 10 feet in any direction. The foliage is so dense it might as well be a wall. Visibility is 0. Shadows don't behave normally here. The sun filters through the canopy like it's trying to apologise, but failing. Everything is green, brown, or some impossible shade in between. You stop trusting your eyes after the first week. That thing that looks like a tree root might be a snake. That hill you just climbed might actually be a dead horse. You don't ask questions anymore. Your rations are sealed in tins, assuming they weren't lost in the last airdrop or devoured by ants the size of shoelaces. The food is barely food. A block of what used to be meat. A biscuit so hard it could double as armour plating. And tea powder that tastes like nostalgia and surrender. The irony is that this whole mess started with the Japanese trying to cut off British supply lines. Jokes on everyone. The supply lines already feel cut. It's like starving to death in a buffet where everything is made of cardboard. You check your rifle again. Not because it needs checking, but because it's the only part of your day that still feels remotely within your control. The weapon is covered in grime, the barrel clogged with damp. You cleaned it last night, or maybe the night before. Time is hard to follow here. Every day blends into the next. There's no weekend. There's no after this shift. There's just awake, alert, and hoping not to be the next name muttered under breath during roll call. You've already heard about Kohima. The stories get passed around like bad rumours. The siege, the desperate defence, the trench warfare fought in people's gardens and tennis courts. Yes, tennis courts. People lived here once. Civilians. Now the only things living are mould and trauma. You haven't seen an actual civilian in weeks. Just wreckage. Burnt houses. Craters that used to be roads. And every so often, a boot that still has part of someone in it. You stop looking too closely. The heat shifts throughout the day, but it never really lets up. In the morning it's hot. In the afternoon, it's worse. At night, it becomes personal. The kind of heat that presses against your lungs and tells you sleep was a luxury for people who weren't deployed here. You'd give anything for a breeze. Instead, the air just sits there, damp and judgmental. Sweat has nowhere to go. It drips, pools, and creates entire ecosystems under your arms, behind your knees, and in places you don't talk about anymore. The monsoon is coming. Everyone keeps saying it, as if the current weather isn't already apocalyptic. The rain here doesn't fall, it slams. Sheets of water turn trails into rivers, foxholes into swimming pools, and tents into wet laundry baskets with a roof. Except there's no roof, just canvas, stretched so tight that it'll collapse the second you start to think it won't. You've seen it happen. You're still sleeping in a lean-to made from sticks, a ground sheet, and broken dreams. You think back to the recruitment posters, the ones with smiling soldiers, clean uniforms, adventure. They didn't show the part where your socks fused to your skin, or your fingernails turn black from constant immersion. They didn't mention jungle rot, trench foots, or that specific type of despair that only comes from trying to dry your underwear by hanging it on a bayonet in the rain. You don't know if the guy next to you is asleep or dead. You don't want to check. Either way, there's nothing you can do about it right now. You hope he's asleep. You hope you'll sleep. But even if you do, it won't be rest. It'll be a tactical coma, interrupted every 15 minutes by distant gunfire, loud mosquitoes, or the urgent need to scratch somewhere deeply inconvenient. You learned quickly that sleep isn't about comfort. It's about collapsing just long enough to forget you exist. You're not sure how long this will go on. No one is. Officially, it's all part of pushing back the Japanese forces and securing the border. Unofficially, it feels like being slowly digested by the landscape, while someone occasionally yells orders over a broken radio. The officers don't have any better answers. They're sweating just as much as you. Everyone is. The jungle doesn't care about rank. You glance down at your hands. The skin's gone soft. Not in a good way. In a might slough off during the next march kind of way. You try not to think about the infection that's brewing in your left heel. The last medic who looked at it gave you a vague nod and some powder that expired during the First World War. You used it anyway. Because what else are you going to do? Crawl back to civilization? Good luck finding it. The last town you passed was just a sign and some ashes. You don't write letters anymore. Not because you don't want to. Because the paper disintegrates. Or because there's no one to send them to. Or because the last time you tried, your pencil crumbled from the humidity. Or maybe you're just tired. So tired that even pretending to be okay on paper feels like too much effort. You'll write when you get back. If you get back, if there's still someone reading, a shout in the distance. Could be anything. Could be a patrol, a messenger, a warning. Could be the beginning of another push. Could be nothing. You don't move yet. You wait. You've learned that much at least. The jungle rewards stillness. Movement draws attention, and attention is rarely good. You don't want to be the first one to react. You want to be the guy behind the guy behind the guy who reacted. Eventually you'll move. You'll grab your gear, your weapon, your damp rucksack filled with slightly mouldy essentials. You'll trudge forward through the undergrowth that cuts your legs and whispers bad omens. You'll hope the leeches haven't found your socks again. You'll climb a hill, or descend into a gully, or stand guard on a ridge that overlooks more trees, more fog, more of the same. You'll pretend to know what you're doing. You'll pretend it's working, because this is what it means to be here. Not fighting, not charging, just enduring. Sweating, scratching, waiting. 1 minute at a time. 1 foot after the other. Until something breaks. Your body, the silence, or the jungle itself. You're probably wondering how you ended up here. 1 minute you are back home, maybe reading the paper, maybe sitting through a briefing by someone who smelled too clean to have ever held a rifle. The next, you're wearing a uniform 2 sizes too big and listening to someone with a clipboard tell you you're being deployed to the front. What front? They didn't say. Just the front. Like it's a theatre, and you're the opening act. You didn't volunteer. Not really. You signed some forms, or maybe someone signed them for you. Maybe it was a recruitment drive in your school, or maybe you were just standing too close to the wrong office at the wrong time. You were told it would be important, that your country needed you, that it would be an adventure. You were not told it would involve malaria tablets that make you hallucinate, or that you'd be shipped halfway around the world to a place where shoes rot faster than fruit. Your training was brief, efficient, and wildly unhelpful. You were shown how to assemble a rifle, salute correctly, and maybe march in a straight line if the sergeant was in a generous mood. No one mentioned the part about carrying 80 pounds of gear up vertical jungle terrain, or how to differentiate between an ordinary tropical rash and the kind that ends with your foot getting amputated by a man who also cooks dinner. Deployment didn't come with a send-off. No parades, no heartfelt farewells. Just a transport ship that smelled like rust and vomit, crammed with too many men and not enough air. You sailed for weeks, or months. Time loses meaning when your diet consists of boiled meat, powdered milk, and anxiety. You tried to sleep in a hammock once. It snapped. Someone laughed. You never found out who. When you finally reached land, the welcome party was a wall of heat and a man with a whistle shouting at you to grab your kit and get moving. No orientation, no introduction. Just a line of sweating bodies marching into the unknown. You'd been issued a small bag of essentials. Half of it useless, the other half already moulding. A canteen, a mess tin, some rations, a knife duller than your current outlook on life, and a map that might as well have been written in crayon. You were told this would be a defensive position, that you'd be holding ground, protecting supply lines, stopping the Japanese from pushing farther west. You were not told that holding ground meant digging holes into clay with your hands while being bitten by centipedes the length of sausages. You were also not told how close the Japanese already were, or how familiar they were with jungle warfare. Turns out they'd been doing this longer than you've been alive. Your unit is a mix of regulars, conscripts, and men who stopped asking questions 3 assignments ago. Some speak English, some don't. Communication happens mostly through hand gestures, grimacing, and the occasional barked order followed by someone doing the wrong thing and hoping it was close enough. Morale isn't bad, it's just missing, like someone lost it on the boat and decided not to mention it. You're stationed outside Imphal, or near Kohima, or possibly both. The names blend together, just like the days. You've been told this battle is crucial, strategic even, a turning point. What they don't tell you is that crucial feels a lot like completely screwed. Every ridge is fortified. Every trail is a trap. The enemy is out there. You don't always see them, but you feel them. Quiet, organised, patient. You've learned to stop saying it's too quiet, because the last guy who said that got shot 7 minutes later. The gear you were given was designed for European climates. Wool uniforms in the jungle. Brilliant. Thick socks that trap moisture like they're being paid for it. Webbing that chafes so badly you've developed a permanent rash across your chest. You've improvised. Everyone has. You cut sleeves off, tie things down with rope, wear socks on your hands during night patrols because gloves ran out 3 months ago. Adapt or dissolve. Those are the choices. You're briefed each morning by someone who looks like they haven't slept since the last major offensive. The briefings are vague. Dig in. Hold this position. Expect movement. Movement of what? When? Where? No one knows. You nod like you understand, then return to your foxhole and try to remember which direction your last landmine was planted. You lost the diagram. It's somewhere under a pile of soaked correspondence and an unopened tin of corned beef. You haven't bathed properly in weeks. Washing means finding clean water. Clean water means a source that hasn't already been claimed by frogs, enemy patrols, or something with tentacles. You've given up on soap. You scrub with whatever you can find. Leaves, your shirt, a handful of sand once. That didn't go well. Your skin is in open revolt. Your armpits are forming new cultures. The last guy who tried to stay clean caught something from the soap and had to be carried out on a stretcher. Mail comes sometimes. When it does, and it's usually weeks out of date. You once got a letter telling you to wish your cousin luck on his deployment. He was already dead. No one brings it up. You write back anyway. You write things like, all is well, and the boys are keeping spirits up, and I'm safe. You lie, because the truth is too complicated to fit on military stationery. The truth is that you're scared, that you're tired, that the jungle feels like it's digesting you slowly, and some days you're not sure you mind. Reinforcements arrive occasionally, fresh-faced, stiff-backed, smelling like they still remember what a bar of salt looks like. You give them a week, 2 if they're lucky, then they start to slump. Their eyes go dull, their boots start to disintegrate, they stop asking questions. That's how you know they've adjusted, or given up. Same difference. The nights are worse. Daytime is chaos. But night is where the real terror sets in. Every rustle becomes a threat. Every breeze a warning. You sleep in shifts. If you sleep. Sometimes you lie awake staring at the sky through the leaves, wondering if the stars look different back home. Sometimes you hear movement, real or imagined, and clutch your rifle like it's the only thing tethering you to the world. Sometimes you cry, quietly, into your sleeve. No one talks about it. Everyone does it. The officers aren't immune. They just hide it better. The best ones are the ones who've stopped pretending to know everything. The worst are the ones who still think this is winnable through proper posture and shouting. You try not to get attached. Anyone could be gone tomorrow. Wounded, missing, reassigned. The jungle takes what it wants. Every day starts the same. A whistle, a shout, a round of coughing from someone who's been sick for so long it's become part of his personality. You lace your boots, or what's left of them, check your rifle, and stare into the trees wondering how far you'll have to march today. You hope it's short. It never is. The terrain is vertical. Every hill leads to another hill. Every valley is a swamp. Every trail is a memory of someone who didn't make it. You hear distant gunfire. You brace instinctively. It's far, but not that far. Someone's getting hit. You don't know who. You don't ask. You just adjust your helmet, shift your gear, and wait for the next set of orders. They'll come, eventually. Until then, you sit, you listen, you sweat, and you think about home, even if home feels more like a dream now than something you ever actually lived in. You've been deployed. That's what they call it. Deployed. Like you're a piece on a board, moved by someone who isn't here and never will be. You're not a hero. You're not a symbol. You're a body in a jungle, carrying a gun, trying not to die. And tomorrow, you'll do it again. Eventually, you get to your position. That's the word they use, position, like it's a scenic overlook or a chessboard. What it really is a hole. A shallow, muddy, leech-infested hole that you dug yourself with a dented entrenching tool and the fading will to live. This is your new home. Not just where you fight from, but where you sleep, eat, cough, shake, and slowly question your choices. Welcome. It's not even deep enough. You were supposed to go chest height. but the ground's full of roots, stones, and the occasional hidden snake. After an hour of hacking away like a maniac with a broken spoon, you gave up and settled for a 2-foot depression in the ground that collects rainwater like it's being paid to. You slap your mosquito net over the top like that's going to help, but it's already torn, and something chewed through one corner last night. Probably not important. Probably. Your foxhole has a name. You didn't give it one, but someone else did. They all get names eventually. Death Trap, Mud Sauna, The Spa, ironic names mostly, passed around like gallows humour. Yours doesn't have a name yet, which means no one's died in it, yet. Give it time. You try to personalise it, rearrange a few stones, maybe find a stick to prop up your gear. But the second it rains, it all goes under. Your rifle gets wet no matter what. Your boots float. Your blanket, the same one you were issued weeks ago, now weighs as much as a small dog and smells like boiled feet. There's nowhere to hang it, nowhere to dry it. So you just wrap it around yourself like a damp wool coffin and wait. You sit in this hole for hours. Days. You only leave when ordered. You eat in it. Sleep in it. Relieve yourself dangerously close to it. If someone shoots at you, you drop into it. If someone screams in the distance, you crouch lower in it and grip your weapon like it'll save you from physics. It won't, but it's all you've got. There are no walls, no roof. Just leaves overhead and mud below. Sometimes you try to reinforce the sides with sandbags, but you're out of sandbags, so you use torn clothing, rations tins, whatever's lying around. It doesn't help. The ground keeps caving in, a little more each day, like it's trying to swallow you back into the jungle. You're not convinced it won't eventually succeed. Your neighbour's hole is 6 feet away. He snores. You'd complain, but he also saved your life last week by dragging you into cover when a shell exploded a few feet away. So now you just throw rocks at him when he gets too loud and hope he takes it as affection. You haven't had a normal conversation in days. Everything revolves around movement, food, the weather, and how long someone's cough has lasted. There's no privacy, not that you expected any, but even still, the lack of boundaries is a shock. You bathe, if you can call it that, in the same puddle someone else used as a latrine yesterday. You sleep next to a guy who talks in his dreams, sometimes screams. You try not to react. If he wakes up, he might cry, or punch something, or both. Either way, it's not your business. Everyone's breaking in their own way. Some are just quieter about it. The smell never leaves. Your own body, for starters. You've stopped registering it as something separate. It's just you now. Then there's the smell of gunpowder, jungle mould, feet, rust, and blood. Always a little blood. From a cut, a blister, a leech, something worse. You patch yourself up with whatever's in the medic kit. Some gauze, a brown powder, mystery ointment that stings like betrayal. You hope for the best and try not to think about tetanus. Your feet are the worst part. Always damp, always swollen, always either numb or painfully awake. You've learned to check them first thing every morning. Not because it helps, but because one guy ignored his for too long and had to have 3 toes lopped off with a field knife and a bottle of whiskey. They boiled the blade over a fire. The smell made everyone gag. That was 2 weeks ago. He's still here. Sort of. He doesn't talk anymore. The ground crawls, not figuratively, literally. Ants, beetles, worms, spiders. They all treat your hole like a public square. You try to clear them out with sticks, with fire, with curses. It never works. One night, you woke up with something inside your shirt. You didn't scream. You just rolled over and hoped it wasn't poisonous. Whatever it was, it left, or didn't. Either way, you stopped checking. When it rains, everything collapses. Your gear floods, your walls erode, the mud turns to soup. You shovel it out in shifts, flicking muck into the air like a deranged badger. Then it rains again. And again, the rain doesn't stop. It slows, maybe, teases. Then dumps buckets all over your dugout like the sky's personally offended by your existence. You haven't been dry in a week, maybe more. Time's a mess. You tried to build a makeshift shelter once. Some branches, a poncho, a couple lengths of rope. It lasted 7 hours before a gust of wind turned it into jungle confetti. After that, you just sat under a tree and took your chances. You don't even flinch when it drips directly onto your face anymore. It's just part of the ritual. Your hole isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Shrapnel doesn't care that you're lying down. Snakes don't ask permission before slithering in. You found a scorpion under your helmet once. You killed it with the heel of your boot and threw it into the bushes. An hour later, its friend came back. Bigger. You didn't kill that one. You just moved your helmet and hoped for the best. Food shows up in tins and gets eaten cold. You shovel it down while crouching, hoping to finish before the ants do. The rice is wet, the meat is questionable. The bread, if there is any, is older than you. You chew because not chewing means hunger. Hunger means weakness. Weakness gets noticed. Sometimes someone gets lucky and a supply drop lands close. Usually it's off target. A crate full of food, ammo, and medical gear crashes 2 miles away and explodes on impact. You heard a story about a guy who caught a can of peaches once. He ate the whole thing in one sitting, then got sick for 3 days. Worth it probably. You've seen people dig their holes too shallow, too narrow, too optimistic. One shell, one rainstorm, and suddenly it's a grave. You try not to think about it, but you can't help checking the angles every time you lie down. Is this deep enough? Will this stop shrapnel? Can I get out fast enough if I need to? The answer is usually no, but you try anyway. Someone in command once called this trench life, as if that dignifies it. These aren't trenches. These are pits. Open sores in the earth, filled with men who haven't seen a bed or a mirror in months. You know what your face looks like by touch now. Stubble, sweat, grime, sunburn. Your lips cracked, your cheeks hollow, your eyes sunken. Everyone looks like this. No one says anything. You have dreams sometimes, about real beds, about dry clothes, about silence. Not this kind of silence. The waiting silence, but real silence. The kind you used to hate because it meant you were alone. You'd give anything for it now. Instead you wake up to coughing, grunting, shouting, and the occasional scream. Then you sit up, wipe the bugs off your neck, and wait for the next order. You tried cleaning your hole once. A real attempt. Pulled the trash out, rearranged the sandbags, scraped out the mud. It lasted until the next rainfall. Then it all went back to chaos. Now you just maintain it. Patch one side, drain the puddle, replace the stick that holds your gear. You stopped caring about the smell. You stopped caring about a lot of things. The hole isn't home, but it's all you've got. And until someone tells you to move, it's where you'll stay. So you crouch back down, adjust your helmet, and hope the ground doesn't move under you again tonight. Because if it does, you're not sure you'll bother crawling back out. You try to sleep. That's the first mistake. The second is assuming that sleep is still something your body does voluntarily. It used to be simple. You got tired, you laid down, you slept. Now sleep is something you chase like a wounded animal, and it always runs just fast enough to stay out of reach. You lie there in your hole, wrapped in a wet blanket, one boot still on, the other lost somewhere in the layers of mud and regret. Your body is screaming for rest. Your joints ache, your eyes burn, your brain is a slow, humming mess of static. But the second you close your eyes, the jungle gets louder. Not objectively louder, just more detailed. Every rustle is an ambush. Every snap of a twig is the beginning of the end. You try to tell yourself it's nothing. It's always nothing, until it isn't. Someone once said, the jungle never sleeps. You didn't believe them. Now you know they were wrong. It does sleep, just never when you need it to. It hums, it buzzes, it hisses, it breathes. Sometimes it even talks. You swear you've heard your name whispered from the trees. You don't mention it to anyone. Either they've heard the same thing, or they'll think you've finally cracked. Which, to be fair, you probably have. Your foxhole is not a bed. It's a damp depression that actively conspires against comfort. You've tried everything. Laying on your back, on your side, curled up like a question mark. Nothing works. Every root is a rock. Every bump is a punishment. Your blanket stinks. Your socks itch. You're sweating, but somehow also cold. You feel like a boiled rag that someone tried to freeze halfway through. Even if you manage to doze off, it doesn't last. You drift for maybe 10 minutes before something wakes you. Gunfire in the distance, someone yelling in their sleep, a centipede crawling across your neck. The sound of your own heartbeat suddenly reminding you that it's still going, for now. You sit up, gasp, wipe your face, and start the whole process again. You're not the only one. You glance over at the guy next to you. He's awake too. You can tell by the way he's staring at nothing. Everyone's tired, all the time. You see it in the way they move. Slow, mechanical, slightly off balance, like they've forgotten how legs are supposed to work. You talk less. You blink more. You don't even try to remember what rested used to feel like. It's gone. Another thing the jungle took and never gave back. Sometimes they give you shifts. 2 hours on, 4 hours off. Doesn't matter. You spend the off shift lying still, hoping your brain will shut up long enough to let you fall unconscious. It rarely does. You count breaths. You count heartbeats. You recite your name over and over again just to remember who you are. You fall asleep for a second and wake up convinced you're somewhere else. Back home maybe, or in a hospital, or dead. Dreams are worse. The few times you do slip under, your mind starts playing tricks. Familiar faces in unfamiliar places. Voices from people you haven't seen in months. Dead men sitting next to you, smiling, asking for a cigarette. You wake up gasping, sweating harder, unsure what's real anymore. You stop telling people what you dream about. They already have their own problems. Noise discipline means no talking after lights out, which is ironic because there are no lights, just darkness, thick and absolute. You can't see your hand in front of your face, but you hear everything, breathing, shifting, the rustle of something moving just beyond the hole. Could be a monkey, could be a sniper, could be nothing. You grip your rifle tighter and stay very, very still. Then there's the weather. Rain on canvas is the soundtrack of this entire deployment. Sometimes gentle, sometimes deafening. It taps, it slaps, it howls. Your shelter leaks. Of course it does. Everything leaks. The water runs down the back of your neck like it's following a plan. Your gear is wet. Your blanket is wet. Your skin is wet. You close your eyes and try to convince yourself that maybe, just maybe, you'll drift off anyway. You don't. You never do. You just lie there, waiting for the horn, the shout, the next shift. You lie there trying to remember what it was like to go to bed without fear. What it was like to turn off a light switch, roll over, and sleep without dreaming of explosions. You lie there wondering how many more nights you'll have to do this, and whether your brain will just give up before your body does. Eventually you nod off, sitting up, head against the side of your foxhole. You wake up with a sore neck, drool down your chin, and the vague realization that a rat may have run across your chest. It doesn't matter. You're still tired. You'll always be tired. That's the default now. They say soldiers adapt, that you get used to it. But what really happens is that you stop noticing. You stop expecting sleep. You treat it like a fluke, a lucky accident, like finding a dry pair of socks or getting a warm cup of tea. When it comes, you don't enjoy it. You hoard it. You ration it in your head. And when it's gone, you don't even sigh. You just brace for another day of dragging your feet through mud, while your brain begs for a reboot that never comes. Nobody talks about it. The sleep, or lack of it. You might hear someone mutter about it over breakfast, if you call that grey mush breakfast. But then it's back to silence. Everyone looks rough. Bloodshot eyes, twitchy hands, faces that look carved from soap left out in the sun. The guy next to you hasn't blinked in 20 minutes. You don't ask. Officers sometimes give pep talks. Stay sharp. Keep your head in the game. Maintain discipline. They say it like sleep is optional, like it's something you can choose to skip. They don't realise that some of you have been awake for 36 hours straight, surviving on adrenaline, habit, and the gnawing fear of being caught off guard. The human body isn't built for this, but no one asked the body. Eventually, the sun rises. That awful, indifferent light filters through the trees and paints everything a dull gold that makes the mud look warmer than it is. You're still exhausted. You always are. But you push yourself up, slap your boots against your legs to shake off whatever decided to nap in them, and prepare to start again. Sleep doesn't come when it's supposed to. It comes in stolen fragments. Sitting against a tree, slumped during a briefing, head on a rock while pretending to tie your boot. You take what you can get. Sometimes you don't even remember sleeping. You just blink, and it's an hour later. You hope someone else was watching your back. You try not to think about what could have happened if they weren't. You stopped using the word rested weeks ago. Now it's just not as bad as yesterday. Slightly less dizzy. Fewer hallucinations. You once dreamed of a full night in a clean bed, with a fan and a soft pillow. You woke up chewing your blanket. That was the last time you allowed yourself to dream. And now you're awake again. Mostly. Enough to function. You stretch. You hear something pop. Could be a joint. Could be your soul. Either way, it's morning. And that means marching, mud, and the same cold breakfast from a dented tin that may or may not have been sealed properly. Sleep. That's a joke. You laughed at it once. Now you just ignore it, like an old friend who stopped writing back. There's no point. The jungle isn't done with you yet. Morning means breakfast, or at least that's the word people keep using, as if what's in your mess tin qualifies as food. It doesn't. Not really. It's more of a suggestion. A vague memory of nutrition packed into a grey lump and paired with some hard tack that looks and tastes like it was excavated from a ruin. You start by digging around your kit for the tin. It's crusted shut. Of course it is. Everything is. The lid hasn't opened properly since the last time it got dropped in the mud and stepped on. You finally pry it open with your bayonet, which is now doubling as a can opener, tent peg, and leech flinger. Inside, a piece of processed meat product that might have once been beef, or pork, or pigeon. It's impossible to tell now. It smells vaguely like oil and regret. The biscuits are next. They come in a small, waxy pouch that does nothing to protect them from the humidity. One is whole, the rest are powder. You chew slowly because chewing fast hurts your teeth. Everything is so dry, it pulls the moisture out of your gums. You pour a little water over the biscuit, trying to soften it, but all it does is turn the outer shell into a paste, while the inside remains brick-like and unbothered. You eat it anyway, not because you want to, because it's either this or go hungry. And no one wants to fight on an empty stomach, even if the stomach is already staging a quiet rebellion. Water comes from your canteen. You filled it at the last stream, then added purifying tablets, which mostly just make it taste like metal and rotten mint. At least it hasn't made you sick, yet. You've stopped being picky. If it doesn't wriggle and it doesn't smell like sewage, it's drinkable. Then there are the pills, malaria tablets. You take one every morning. They taste awful. You're told they're necessary. Some guys refuse to take them because they cause nightmares, nausea, and spontaneous bouts of philosophical despair. Others take double doses just in case. You take yours because someone told you once that it was better to hallucinate a little than end up convulsing in a fever dream surrounded by half-interested medics. You've seen what malaria looks like. The guy in the next foxhole had it last week. He shook so hard his teeth cracked. He sweat through 4 shirts in one night, though technically it was one shirt, just rotated and soaked repeatedly. He talked to someone named Linda in his sleep. No one asked who that was. We all have our own Lindas now. Some mornings there's jam, if the supply lines haven't been wrecked by the rain, or sabotage, or just bad logistics. It comes in a small tin, sticky and sweet, and somehow still comforting. You smear it on a biscuit. The result is still inedible, but now you're pretending it's a pastry. The illusion lasts 3 bites. Then you find the mould, you scrape it off, you eat it anyway. There's also tea, technically. A few leaves at the bottom of a pouch, brewed in a dented tin cup over a fire that won't stay lit. You stir it with a stick. The result is warm brown water with a hint of ash and a floating bug. You drink it anyway, because the alternative is remembering what real tea used to taste like. And that hurts more than the aftertaste. Someone once tried to make coffee. They had a little tin from a Red Cross parcel. They used river water and lit a fire with mosquito coils and damp matches. The result nearly blinded a man. They haven't tried since. Now we just talk about coffee like it's a myth, like unicorns or clean socks. You eat quickly, crouched over your mess kit, using a spoon you carved from a piece of old packing crate because your issued one disappeared 3 weeks ago. Probably buried under your foxhole or stolen by a monkey. Doesn't matter. You're not asking for a replacement. Replacements don't exist here. Everything's either broken or about to be. The act of eating is not enjoyable. It's maintenance. Like fueling a machine that's already rusted through. You chew, swallow, repeat. Some of the food makes your stomach churn. Some of it passes through like it's late for something. Either way, you eat what's there. You don't complain. Or if you do it quietly, with your mouth full, through cracked lips and clenched teeth. Everyone eats together, but it's not social. It's survival. The sound of chewing, spitting, swallowing, a few coughs. No one says much, maybe a grunt, maybe a sarcastic bon appetit from the guy who still thinks he's funny. You don't laugh. Not because it isn't funny, but because your jaw hurts and the joke was 3 weeks too late. You hear rumours of better meals in other units. Cooked rations, warm porridge, powdered eggs that actually dissolve. You don't believe any of it. Lies travel faster than supply crates. And even if it were true, it wouldn't matter. Those meals are over there. You're here. Here, the best you can hope for is a dry biscuit and a can of something that doesn't hiss when you open it. The officers sometimes get extras. They're not supposed to, but they do. A bar of chocolate, a small tin of real butter, maybe even a cigarette that wasn't rolled by a rat. You try not to care, you really do. But when you see them sipping tea that isn't boiled river water, it's hard not to wonder why you're the one eating foot-flavoured jerky in a ditch. You miss food, real food. Not just the taste, but the ritual. A table, a chair, a plate that didn't come from a ration pack printed in 1937. You dream about it. Bread with crust, meat with flavour, soup that didn't come out of a tin shaped like a hand grenade. One guy once described a roast chicken he had back home in such loving detail that someone started crying. He never told that story again. After breakfast, you pack everything up. You scrape your mess tin clean with a twig, wipe your hands on your trousers, and tuck your food kit back into your bag. The bag's soaked. Everything inside is damp. But you pack it anyway. You don't leave things lying around. The jungle eats gear. You lost a pair of socks once. They were right next to your foot. Gone now. Absorbed into the ecosystem. You check your pockets. You make sure your pills are dry. You curse softly when they're not. You pop one anyway and chase it with the last of your water. You'll refill later, assuming the stream hasn't moved. It sometimes does, or disappears, or gets blocked by something that smells suspiciously like a dead mule. You don't ask, you don't report it. You just find another puddle and purify it until it looks less alive. The day hasn't even started yet, but your mouth tastes like metal. Your stomach is already regretting your choices, and there's a cramp forming in your side that might be from the food, or the stress, or just one of your organs giving up. You hope it's not important. You stand up, shoulders stiff, joints creaking like they're made of scrap metal, and disappointment. You grab your gear. The rifle is heavier today. Or maybe you're just more tired. Either way, it's time to move. Again. Breakfast is over. If you can call it that. You shove the last bit of biscuit into your mouth and chew slowly, like maybe it'll turn into something edible if you just believe hard enough. It doesn't. And now you're full. Not in a good way. In the way that means you won't faint immediately, but might still vomit during the march. You look around. Everyone else is doing the same. Quiet, chewing, packing, prepping. The day waits. So does the jungle. You've finished your breakfast, if we're still calling it that, and now it's time to face the rest of the day, which starts, as it always does, with something crawling on you. This time it's a leech. You don't scream. You don't even flinch. You just look down at the fat little parasite latched onto your shin and sigh like someone who's been through this ritual 100 times before. Because you have. You reach down, pluck it off with your fingers, and toss it into the mud. You don't even check for more right away. You know they're there. They always are. Inside your socks, in your waistband, behind your ears somehow. They show up without warning, hitch a ride, and drink until they're bloated. The first few times you saw them, you panicked. You'd yell slap, scramble for salt or fire or anything sharp. Now you just remove them like someone pulling lint off a sweater. Quiet, bored, methodical. Leeches are only the beginning. They're the polite ones. They don't bite. They just attach and suck and leave. The real monsters come at night. Spiders the size of your hand. Not those friendly cartoon spiders. These are jungle spiders. Fast, quiet, and mean. One fell into your boot once. You didn't know until you put it on. You limped for a week and stopped checking for sympathy after day 2. The spider bites aren't always deadly. They're just miserable. Swelling, heat, itching that reaches deep into your bones. The medic gave you a salve that smelled like kerosene and regret. It didn't help, but it did distract you from everything else. You counted that as a win. You've shared your foxhole with a scorpion. Twice. The first time you tried to kill it with your helmet. The second time you just scooted over and let it have the corner. It didn't bother you, you didn't bother it. Mutual understanding. That's the closest thing to peace you're going to get out here. There are rats too. Always rats. They show up at night, chew through your rations, your socks, sometimes your bag straps. One guy had a rat gnaw his bootlace clean off while he was wearing it. He didn't feel it. Slept through the whole thing. Woke up confused. One boot hanging loose. Rat halfway across the trench, with the string in its mouth like it was heading to craft hour. You tried to trap one once. Box, stick, string. The classic. It didn't work. The rat got the food, knocked over the box, and defecated on your shaving kit for good measure. You don't trap anymore. You just hang your food high and hope they go for someone else tonight. Then there's the jungle itself. The plants here have opinions. Sharp, spiny, stinging ones. Vines that wrap around your legs while you're trying to walk. Leaves that give you rashes. Roots that trip you every 4th step. You once leaned against a tree and came away with your back covered in bites from something you couldn't even see. No sound, no warning, just pain, constant and quiet. The bugs make it worse. Mosquitoes, of course. Huge, whining monsters that swarm the second you stop moving. You spray yourself with repellent when you have it, which is rare, and when you don't, you smear on whatever's available. Mud, ash, mystery ointment from a broken tin labelled in 3 languages. It might work. Or maybe you just smell bad enough now that the mosquitoes think you're already dead. Ants are their own category. They're organised, efficient. You dropped a piece of biscuit once and watched it disappear under a wriggling mass of black in less than a minute. You respect the ants. You also fear them. Step on their path and they'll climb your leg like a military assault. They bite hard. You've seen a grown man cry after sitting on a nest by accident. He didn't sit again for 2 days. Your sleeping area is no better. You tuck yourself in, if that's even the word, and spend the night swatting at things. You learn to stop asking what. It doesn't matter. If it bites, you'll find out soon enough. If it doesn't, count your blessings and let it crawl away. One night, something with wings landed on your face. You slapped it instinctively. It responded by stinging you. Right on the lip. You looked like you'd been punched by a wasp with a grudge. And just when you think you've gotten used to it, the screaming starts. Not from the animals, from the men. Someone wakes up yelling. Sometimes from a nightmare. Sometimes from an actual creature sinking fangs into their ankle. The first few times, everyone panicked. Rifles up, eyes wide, thinking it was an ambush. Now we just mutter for them to shut up and roll over. You hear it every night. Not always loud. Sometimes it's just whimpering. A low, broken sound from someone who used to be tough. Or still is, technically. But everyone has limits, and the jungle finds them. One guy hasn't spoken a full sentence in 2 days. Just rocks back and forth, whispering about ants. You give him space. You all do. You've learned that sometimes the jungle doesn't have to kill you outright. It just waits for you to fall apart. There's a guy 2 holes over who hums when he's scared. Low, tuneless. Started during patrols. Now he does it all the time. You try to tell him to stop. He didn't hear you, or didn't care. Now you just hum along. Helps pass the time. Sometimes something big crashes through the trees. Not enemy troops. Something worse. A wild boar. A monkey. A shape you don't recognise. You freeze. Everyone does. No one moves. You clutch your rifle like it matters. Like it'll help if the jungle decides to send something your way with claws and a bad attitude. Usually it passes, but not always. One guy got dragged from his hole once. Just a few feet. Clawed across the arm, bleeding. Whatever it was ran off. We never saw it. He started sleeping with a knife in his hand after that. One night he stabbed his own boot by accident. Thought it was something climbing up his leg. Screamed for 10 minutes. No one laughed. You find yourself listening more. For footsteps. For rustling. For the sound of something with more than 4 legs. You don't sleep so much as hold still and pretend the jungle doesn't notice you. You tell yourself it's just animals. Just bugs. Just shadows. But then the guy across from you jerks awake and starts tearing at his skin, yelling that something's inside him. You hold him down. You tell him it's not. You tell him it's just the heat, the stress, the fever. You lie. Because maybe it is. Or maybe the jungle got in, one bite at a time. You clean your gear in the morning, shake out your boots, check for things that shouldn't be there. You find a centipede. Long, shiny, too many legs. You crush it under a rock and keep moving. No time to scream, not anymore. These are your roommates now. No rent, no rules, no chance of getting them evicted. You live with them, or you don't live at all. You're ordered to move, not asked, not briefed with maps and clear objectives. Just a barked direction, a name you've never heard, and a vague gesture toward a trail that might have been walkable before the monsoon turned it into a riverbed. So you grab your gear, shoulder your rifle, and start marching. Marching sounds organised. It isn't. Not here. Not now. This isn't parade ground precision. This is slipping through mud, tripping over roots, and swatting at insects every 3 steps, while your legs sink deeper into something that smells like wet compost and disappointment. You don't march. You wade. Your boots squelch with every step. That sound used to bother you. Now it's just how your feet talk. They're soaked again, of course. They've been soaked for so long, the skin is starting to peel. Not in sheets. More like soft, pale curls, like old paint on a rotting wall. The medic calls it trench foot. You call it normal, because that's what it is now. Normal. Blisters form, then pop, then fill again. You tape them if you have tape. If not, you just tighten your laces and keep walking. One guy tried wrapping his feet in a shirt. The shirt dissolved. Now he walks slower, limping a little more every mile. No one says anything. He still moves. That's what matters. You lose track of time quickly. The jungle doesn't care about your watch. Daylight filters in and out, filtered through layers of green so thick it feels like you're moving through a bottle. You start in early morning, and by what feels like midday, you realise it's still only 0900. The sky isn't just cloudy, it's claustrophobic. Every step forward feels like you're sinking deeper into something that wasn't meant to be walked on. The monsoon doesn't help. It waits until you're halfway up a slope with no footing, then dumps its contents like it's trying to wash you off the face of the earth. There's no warning, just the first drop on your cheek, then the sound, deafening, instant, solid. Rain here doesn't fall gently, it attacks. In minutes you're drenched, and not just from above. The path floods. Water runs down your back, into your boots, into your kit. You stop bothering with ponchos. They trap heat and water inside. Now you just let it hit you, and pray your gear floats. You've stopped looking for dry ground. It doesn't exist. Every step is a gamble. Mud that grabs your ankle. Stones that shift when you need them most. Roots slick with moss and sabotage. You fell yesterday, landed on your side, bruised a rib. The medic said it wasn't broken. You're not convinced. But what's the difference? You still have to march. Leeches find you faster when you move. Something about the heat, the sweat, the vibrations. You feel them crawling up under your collar, inside your socks, along your waistband. You can't stop to pull them off. Not always. So you just keep going, bleeding a little, swearing a lot. The pack on your back isn't heavy, it's hateful. The straps dig into your shoulders, like they're trying to separate you from your arms. Every shift in terrain makes the load shift, pulling on your spine, grinding your bones together. Inside the pack, a blanket, a change of socks, tins of food you don't want to eat, ammunition you might not get to use, and a few personal items you stopped caring about 3 villages ago. Your rifle swings against your hip. You try adjusting the strap. Doesn't help. You tighten it. Still doesn't help. Eventually you stop noticing the pain, not because it's gone, but because it's everywhere now. Equal. Even background. You pass landmarks. A tree shaped like a question mark. A stone you could swear has moved since yesterday. A broken helmet half buried in the mud. You don't ask whose it was. You don't stop. Stopping isn't safe. Not because of snipers, though those exist, but because the longer you pause, the harder it is to start again. You feel your legs stiffen, your will calcify. You rest only when ordered. Even then, you keep one eye open and one hand on your weapon. The man ahead of you coughs. The same cough he's had for days. Deep, rattling, wet. You try not to think about it. You're not a medic. He'll walk until he can't. Then he'll sit. Then someone will carry him, or leave him, depending on how far there is to go. That's the system. Nobody says it out loud, but everyone knows. You're told there's a supply station ahead. Another lie. Or maybe it's real, but not here. Not now. You've been chasing supplies for weeks. They drop in by air sometimes. Crates float down into places you can't reach. Into valleys swarming with enemy patrols, or onto ridges that are practically cliffs. You saw one crate burst open on impact. Crackers, condensed milk, rifle ammo, all ruined. The ants got to it before you did. You step in something soft and sink to your shin. You try to pull your foot free and your boot stays behind. You have to bend down and dig it out with both hands, swearing under your breath while the guy behind you pretends not to notice. You put the boot back on. It's full of water now. And something that squirmed. You keep walking. The The march doesn't end. Not really. You arrive somewhere. A ridge, a hilltop, the edge of a village that's more rubble than shelter. And they tell you to dig in. So you do. A new hole. A new position. A new angle to crouch from while you stare into the jungle and wait for something worse. Your legs cramp at night. Deep, punishing spasms that wake you up like a gunshot. You massage them with shaking hands. Bite your lip to avoid crying out. The last thing you need is to attract attention. You're not sure whose. Doesn't matter. No one wants to hear you scream. You've started to hate your feet. Not because they hurt, though they do always, but because they feel alien now. Bloated, raw, peeling. You barely recognise them. You take your boots off, look down, and feel like you're staring at someone else's limbs. Sometimes you poke them, just to make sure they still work. You lost a toenail last week. You didn't notice until it was gone. You wrap the toe in cloth and hope for the best. It turned black yesterday. You'll deal with it later. You march during the day. You march at night. Sometimes with orders. Sometimes without. Sometimes just because the ground behind you is no longer safe. You've been walking so long, you've forgotten what it's like to sit on something that doesn't sink. You dream of dry paths, of even terrain, of a road, paved and level, stretching toward a destination that doesn't shift in the rain. But there are no roads here, just trails that dissolve, just mountains that don't care how tired you are, just jungle that swallows footprints before you've even taken the next step. And so you march, blistered, soaked, half-conscious. You march with leeches in your socks and a cramp in your back and a prayer stuck between your teeth. You march past bodies, past wreckage, past the remains of another failed stand. You march until someone tells you to stop. Then you stand there, swaying, pretending the ground feels stable beneath you. You don't ask how far there is left to go. You don't ask what the mission is. You just shift the pack on your shoulders, wipe the rain from your eyes, and keep going. Because here, there is no arrival. Just more jungle. Just more movement. Just one more step. There's no front line here. No trench to climb over. No clear border between safe and not safe. One moment you're walking, sweating, cursing the terrain. The next, someone yells a warning, or maybe no one does, and suddenly you're in it. That's how most people meet the Japanese offensive. Not in formation, not with a battle plan, just there. One step from exhaustion to gunfire. You've heard them before you see them. Sharp, controlled bursts from Arisaka rifles. The occasional pop of a grenade. Screams that don't belong to anyone in your unit. Sometimes distant. Sometimes so close you freeze. Then it's your turn. It doesn't feel like a movie. No dramatic music. No wide, sweeping hero shots. Just chaos. Sudden, snapping chaos. You drop behind a root, behind a rock, maybe just into more mud. You breathe hard, too loud. You shut your mouth. Your fingers find your rifle automatically. Safety off. Eyes scanning. There's no clear target. There never is. Just movement. Leaves shifting where they shouldn't. Muzzle flashes where they don't belong. The Japanese don't shout. They don't wave flags. They don't move in neat suicidal lines like in the old training reels. They're ghosts. Fast. Precise. They move through the jungle like they were born in it. Because many of them were. They know the trails better than you. They've set traps you haven't even noticed yet. And they don't waste bullets. You've heard rumours that they don't take prisoners. That they creep into camps at night with knives in their teeth. that they can vanish completely in under 10 seconds. Some of it's true. Enough that when you hear the first signs of contact, your blood drops a few degrees, and you wonder if this is finally it. The first time you see one, really see one, it's a blur of brown uniform and motion. Your weapon's already up. You fire. You don't know if you hit. You don't even look. There's no time. Someone yells to your left. You spin, shoot again, duck, roll. There's a branch in your face. There's a round buzzing past your ear. You feel the air it displaces. You don't think. Thinking gets people killed. You move, not smartly, not heroically, just fast. You follow whoever's moving in front of you, or whoever looks like they know where cover is. You don't question if they outrank you. The jungle doesn't care about stripes. The Japanese don't leave signs behind, just bodies. Maybe a dropped pack. Maybe not. They hit fast, test your line, and fade. You're told it's strategic. That this isn't just fighting, it's psychological. It works. You're paranoid now. Every sound is a footstep. Every bush is an ambush. You sleep with your rifle across your chest and your helmet still on. They dug into the hills above Kohima. You've seen what that looks like. Camouflaged bunkers cut into the side of a ridge. Mortars buried under trees. Machine guns mounted low, waiting for movement. You've assaulted one once. You're not in a hurry to do it again. You lost 3 men in 10 minutes. Didn't even see the shooters. Just muzzle flashes, blood, and screaming. They're not stupid. That's the worst part. The way they plan. The way they circle. They cut off supply lines. Block retreat routes. Send small groups around your flanks. You thought you were guarding the front. Turns out the front moved. Now you're being hit from both sides, and the map in your pack might as well be a postcard. One patrol went out last week and didn't come back. No radio. No word. Just silence. They found the remains 2 days later. Not all of them. Some were scattered. The guy who saw it first vomited and hasn't spoken since. They burned what was left. Said it was safer that way. We didn't ask. You learn quickly how to tell the difference between one type of gunfire and another. You can pick out their rifles from ours, their grenades from our mortars, their shouting from our shouting. It all blends together in the moment, but afterward you hear it in your skull, echoing behind your eyes. The officers keep saying we're pushing them back. Holding the line. Holding what? Mud? Holes? A ridge that's been captured, lost, and captured again so many times it doesn't even have a name anymore? You're not sure what holding means when no one can sleep in the same spot 2 nights in a row. They come at night too. Not always shooting, sometimes just creeping, testing. Slitting the throat of a sentry before fading back into the brush. You try to stay alert, but you're tired, so tired. You slap yourself to stay awake. You hum. You chew coffee grounds. Still, you drift. And that's when it happens. Never to you. Not yet, but to the guy next to you. Then he's gone. You saw one man get stabbed in silence. No gunfire. Just a shape emerging from the dark. Steel flashing. And then gone. The victim bled out without a word. You found him in the morning. Eyes wide, arms still half raised like he was trying to understand what happened. You buried him fast. There's no ceremony here. Just a shallow pit and a muttered name. You're told to keep morale up. You laugh at that. Morale? You'd settle for dry socks. Or a full night's sleep without checking your flank every 10 minutes. You'd settle for a commander who didn't keep saying soon like it's a promise instead of a guess. Some men start talking about the Japanese like they're monsters. Not human. It makes it easier, probably. But then you capture one. He's thin, scared, younger than you, bleeding from the leg. He won't look anyone in the eye, won't speak. You realise he's just as scared, just as broken, just as tired. You give him water. He cries, then he gets taken away. You never see him again. The truth is, no one here is a monster, but everyone is doing things they never imagined. You included. You shot a man 2 days ago who never saw you. You saw the way he fell, the way his body twisted. You didn't feel proud, you felt sick. Then you felt nothing. Then you moved on, because that's what you're supposed to do. This isn't victory, it's endurance. It's not winning, it's lasting longer than they do. You don't count the days anymore. You count how many meals you've had, how many bullets you've fired, how many friends you've lost. That's the scoreboard now. You keep your bayonet close, not because you plan to use it, but because someone told you it makes you harder to sneak up on. A lie probably, but you believe it anyway. Like you believe the radio reports that say help is coming. Like you believe there's still a world outside this jungle. You reload. You check your sight. You adjust your helmet. Somewhere, gunfire cracks again. It's not close, but it's not far either. You move anyway. They keep saying supplies are coming. They always say that. Radio chatter, command briefings, shouted half promises from someone with a clipboard and a clean uniform. You've stopped listening. You know what's coming. Nothing. Or worse, the wrong thing, in the wrong place at the wrong time. Out here, supply lines aren't lines. They're guesses. Hopes. Occasional parachutes drifting through mist, landing in trees, rivers, or the wrong valley altogether. You've watched entire crates of food smash into the jungle floor like birthday presents thrown from a plane. No parachute, no control. Just impact. One exploded on contact, covering a hill in powdered milk and ruined dreams. The rations are running out. Not in a dramatic, last meal sort of way. More in a slow, grinding decline where portions get smaller, biscuits get mouldier, and people start bartering scraps like their currency. You used to get meat. Now you get a can labelled meat that smells like regret and looks like wet lint. You still eat it. Because if you don't, someone else will. You've learned to get creative, mixing old tins with jungle plants, boiling leaves, cooking ants. One guy tried to make stew out of roots. It made half the unit vomit for 2 days. He didn't get in trouble. He was trying. That's what survival looks like now. Failed jungle soup and diarrhea by candlelight. When the drops come in right, which is rare, it's a celebration. A crate full of stale biscuits, a sack of rice, a tin of beans, sometimes cigarettes. Those are gold. Trade 1 cigarette for a handful of sugar, 2 for a clean pair of socks. You'd trade your rifle for chocolate if anyone had any, but no one does. Ammo is rationed, that's what they tell you now. Use it only when necessary, as if anyone was shooting for fun. You check your pouches and count what's left. A few full clips maybe, some loose rounds in your pocket. You pick up dropped magazines from the ground, not caring if they're muddy or dented. Better than nothing. Everything's better than nothing. The radio broke last week. A short circuit from the rain. The tech tried to fix it using parts from a flashlight and a tin cup. It buzzed once, smoked, and died. Now you're officially cut off. Again. You're not even sure if headquarters knows where you are. Maybe they do. Maybe you've been written off as pending. That word comes up a lot. You hear it when the officers whisper, Supply drop is pending. Evac is pending. Translation: no one's coming. You've started splitting meals with the guy next to you. Not out of generosity, just practicality. You take turns eating. One rests while the other chews. That way you both feel like you've eaten twice as much. It's a lie, but a useful one. You cling to lies now the way you used to cling to facts. Water's worse. You boil what you can. When you can. When there's fuel. When there's time. When there's not a sniper waiting for your smoke. Otherwise you drink it straight. River water, puddles, run off from your tarp. You take the malaria pills and pray. You try not to think about what floated in that stream yesterday. You saw it, you know. You drank anyway. You ration everything. Matches, batteries, sugar, dry socks. You write your name on your spoon. You sleep with your boots under your arms. You keep a hand on your bag while you doze. Not because someone will steal it, though maybe they will, but because losing it means you're done. No gear, no hope. Some of the drops contain useless items. A box of pamphlets once. Stay strong, victory is near. You use them for kindling. One crate had 5 right boots, no lefts. You wore 2 rights anyway. Another had hats, fancy ones, parade gear. You burned them in silence. Someone joked we should wear them into battle and die with dignity. No one laughed. Then there's the stuff you never get but always need. Salt, medical gauze, soap, razor blades. You've stopped shaving. You all have. The stubble's turned to beards. The beards are patchy. It doesn't matter. No one cares what you look like anymore. You all smell like the same 3 things. Smoke, sweat, and slowly decomposing fabric. The officers try to stay optimistic. It's almost funny. Watching them pretend this is fine. That we're just between drops. That the weather will clear. That the next crate will land where it's supposed to. You nod. You smile. Then you go back to counting beans and checking your last remaining dry match. Some of the locals try to help. They bring rice, fruit, water. When they can. When it's safe. When they're not already starving themselves. You don't ask how they got it. You just thank them. They never stay long. They drop the goods, avoid eye contact, and disappear back into the trees. You think they're afraid of the Japanese. Or you. Or both. One guy started hoarding. You found out when he died. Malaria, maybe. Or something worse. His pack was stuffed with biscuits, tea packets, chocolate from some forgotten drop weeks ago. Everyone stood around the body, staring at the food like it was treasure. No one said anything. You split it evenly. You didn't talk about it again. Hunger's funny. It doesn't hit all at once. It creeps. First you lose weight, then you lose strength, then you start forgetting things. Words, dates, directions. You start shaking, even when you're warm. You get lightheaded. You hallucinate smells. Your stomach stops growling. That's the worst part, when the hunger stops making noise. That's when it's serious. You've chewed on grass. You've sucked the juice out of fruit peels. You've eaten rice soaked in water and called it porridge. You've considered things you won't say out loud. Things that moved. Things that stung. You didn't. Not yet. But you thought about it. Everyone has. There's a kind of hunger that feels like dying. You've felt it. Not dramatic. Just slow. Like a battery draining. Percentage by percentage. Your hands tremble. Your knees lock. You blink more because your vision blurs. You hope the next drop has something real in it. Meat, bread, anything solid. It never does. Sometimes you joke about it. Gallows humour. 5-star cuisine today, lads. Ration surprise? Who wants the chewy end? It's not funny. though it fills the space where your sanity used to be. They say we're winning, holding the Japanese off, bleeding them dry, but it feels like we're the ones drying out. The enemy has rice, stockpiles, logistics. We have hope, mould, and the occasional crate full of hats. You scrape the bottom of your tin with a stick, trying to get the last crumbs. You lick your fingers. You close your eyes and pretend you're full. You're not. You haven't been in weeks. But you tell yourself the weakness in your legs is just the march, just the weather, just temporary. And still they tell you, supplies are on the way. You look at the sky. You don't believe it anymore. They tell you to dig in, standard order, standard phrase, like it's tactical, meaningful, part of a larger plan. But out here, it just means make a hole and wait. Again. So you dig. The earth isn't soft. It should be, after all the rain, but it's not. It's wet, yes, but dense. Clay, heavy, packed with roots and stones and things you'd rather not name. Your entrenching tool is bent from the last move. You use it anyway. Hack, scrape, toss, repeat. Your hands blister. Then the blisters break. Then they scab. Then they break again. The hole isn't big. Not at first. You carve out a place just wide enough for your body, your gear, and whatever leftover hope still fits. Later you expand it. Add a shelf for supplies. A small ledge for your elbows when you're firing. A drainage trench that doesn't work. Eventually it floods. You bail it out with a tin cup. This is your position now. Your home. Your coffin, if it comes to that. You try not to think about that part, but you do anyway. Everyone does. They don't say it, but it's written on their faces. This hole isn't temporary. It's just where you'll be until the next order comes. Or until something worse does. The work never ends. Even after you've dug the hole, you're still digging. Reinforcing walls, carving firing angles, clearing the field of view. You cut back brush, only for it to grow back by morning. You lay wire, even though you're not sure what it's supposed to stop. You set traps, empty cans strung on string, tripwires that might work. You pretend it helps. Pretending is all that's left. You sleep here, eat here, sweat here, bleed here. Sometimes you don't even leave to relieve yourself. No point. You dig a side pit and cover it with a tin sheet. You've stopped caring. Privacy died somewhere back around Imphal. The air is always heavy. Not just from the humidity, but from the tension. You're waiting. That's all this is. One long stretch of waiting, broken by moments of panic, and the occasional reminder that the enemy is still out there, still watching. You know they are. You've seen the movement in the trees. You've found footprints too fresh to be yours. You pull watch-in shifts. 2 hours on, 4 off. But no one really sleeps during the off time. You close your eyes. Maybe. You rest your body. Sort of. But your brain never shuts down. Not all the way. You're always listening. Always twitching at sounds. A cough. A click. The snap of a twig that wasn't made by you. You don't speak much. Not unless you have to. Voices carry. Even whispers. So you sit in your hole. Eyes on the tree line. Heart pacing itself like it knows something's coming. You don't know when. You don't know how. But it is. It always is. The ground never dries. The floor of your foxhole is a sponge. Your socks are permanently damp. Your skin is beginning to break down in places. The back of your knees, between your toes, where your gear straps rub your shoulders raw. You apply ointment when there is any. Otherwise, you leave it and hope it doesn't get infected. Sometimes it does. You've seen what happens when it does. There's a guy in the next position who can't stand anymore. His foot swelled up the size of a canteen. The medic cut it open with a scalpel that hasn't been properly cleaned in 3 weeks. Yellow pus poured out. Everyone gagged. They gave him a rag to bite and poured iodine into the wound. He passed out. They wrapped it up. He's still here. But he's not getting better. No one gets better out here. You count the days by counting the bullet casings near your feet. You collect them in a small pouch. You don't know why. Maybe just to mark the time. You haven't seen a calendar in a month. You don't know what day it is. Doesn't matter. The sun comes up, the rain starts, the fire comes eventually. That's your calendar now. Sometimes they shell the position. Just a few rounds. Enough to keep you nervous. You hear the first whistle and duck instinctively. If it's close, you hit the dirt and cover your head. If it's far, you wait. The waiting is worse. You never know if the next one's meant for you. You never know if they're walking the fire closer. You just breathe shallow and pray your hole is deep enough. One landed 10 meters from your hole last night. Shook the ground like an earthquake. Dirt rained down for 20 minutes. Your ears rang until morning. Your pack got shredded. Your mess kit is gone. You don't even know where it went. Maybe in a tree. Maybe into someone else's hole. You checked yourself after. Nothing major. Some cuts, a gash on your thigh. You tied a strip of cloth around it. You think it's clean. You'll deal with it later. You keep saying that. Later. Later. Later never shows up. They say digging in means you're holding the line. But what it really means is staying in place long enough to forget what movement feels like. Your legs lock up. Your knees throb. Your spine curves. You crouch for hours at a time. When you finally stretch, it feels like your body's made of rusted wire. You look around. Everyone's hunched. Everyone's thin. Faces hollow. Eyes half closed. You'd think they were asleep if you didn't know better. No one sleeps like that. Not out here. The guy on your left used to hum. Not anymore. Now he just stares. He's been through 2 foxholes already. One flooded, the other caved in during a mortar attack. He says nothing. Eats when food shows up. Fires when told. Then just sits there. Like furniture. You hope you don't end up like him. But you probably will. There's a body buried behind the line. Shallow grave. Covered in leaves. You were there when they dug it. Quick. No time. They didn't even finish the hole. Just laid him in, threw dirt over the top, and moved on. Someone marked it with a broken helmet. No one talks about it now, but you all know it's there. You sleep next to it. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. The jungle's full of bones anyway. You write letters sometimes. Not often. There's nothing to say. You start with, "I'm fine," and stop after that. Everything else feels like a lie. You don't describe the hole, the blood, the smell of rot that never fully leaves your nose. You write about the weather, about the scenery. You say things like, "Spirits are high," and "we're holding strong." No one believes it. But it sounds better than "we're digging in and we're dying slowly." Because that's what this is. Slow, not dramatic, not all at once. Just steady. Bit by bit. Piece by piece. Your body softens. Your mind frays. Your gear breaks. Your resolve cracks in places you don't even notice until later. You're not broken. Not yet. But you're not whole either. No one is. You sit in your hole, hand on your rifle, and wait, because waiting is all that's left. It starts as a pop, then a crack, then a full chorus. You know the difference immediately. Not drills, not target practice, not some unlucky animal walking too close to a nervous sentry. This is real. This is live, and it's spreading. You grip your rifle before you're even fully upright. You're already soaked in sweat, legs numb from crouching, eyes gritty from another night of half sleep. But none of that matters now. What matters is that the ridge to your left is lighting up like someone flipped a switch on a war. The sound travels fast through the hills. Echoes bounce in ways that make it impossible to tell where anything is actually coming from. You hear bursts from above, from the tree line behind you, from a ridge that was secure last week. Everyone around you looks the same. Heads up, shoulders tense, no one speaking. Just listening, trying to figure out if this is it again, and then you know. It is. Your sergeant barks something, but the words barely register. You're already moving, sliding into position, laying flat in the muck, barrel aimed at nothing in particular. Because there's nothing to see, not yet. The hill in front of you is covered in trees. The enemy's out there. Has to be. Somewhere in the green. Somewhere up high. Gunfire rolls in like a storm front. Short bursts, long bursts. Intermittent silence that somehow makes it worse. You can tell when it's automatic. When it's controlled. And when someone's panicking and firing blind. You hear all of it. You catalogue it automatically. That's a Bren gun. That's Arisaka. That's someone yelling and emptying a clip, just to feel less afraid. You fire a few rounds, not at anything specific, just into the hillside, just to say you're here. You don't know if you hit anything. You don't know if you're supposed to. There's no call to charge, no real line to defend. Just staying alive long enough to see the next 10 minutes. Mortars start next. Soft thunks from behind you, followed by dull, delayed detonations. You can't see where they're landing. You hope someone knows. You hope the range is right. You've seen what happens when it's not. You still have shrapnel in your calf from a friendly shell last month. They apologised, then asked you to dig another trench. Someone, to your right, starts screaming. Not wounded? Not yet. Just shouting. Directions, maybe. Or panic. Or both. Then the scream cuts off. You don't look. You keep your eyes on the hill. It's hard to explain what a jungle firefight sounds like to someone who's never been in one. It's not clean. It's not organised. It's not rhythmic. Like in films. It's stuttering, scattered chaos. Rifle pops, machine gun buzzes, the occasional explosion so loud it wipes your memory for a second. Then silence, then more. No consistency, just shock and wait. Shock and wait. You shift position. Mud slides under your chest. Your arms are shaking. You tell yourself it's from adrenaline, not fear. You lie. You've lied before. A few minutes in, or maybe 20, maybe 5, time doesn't behave anymore. You spot movement. A flash of colour? A shape? You fire. Twice. The figure drops. Maybe they ducked. Maybe they weren't even there. You don't get confirmation out here. You just shoot, wait, and hope you didn't just waste another round. The guy next to you yells for ammo. You toss him a clip. He catches it with bloody hands. No idea if it's his blood or someone else's. No one asks. You reload. Keep firing. Smoke starts drifting through the trees. Something's burning. Brush maybe. A body maybe. The air smells like scorched leaves and melted nylon and something worse. You breathe through your mouth. Doesn't help. You're pinned for a while. Can't move forward. Can't retreat. You don't know if anyone's flanking. You don't know how many are out there. You just know they're shooting, and you're shooting, and this hill is now the centre of the universe. Eventually the fire slows. Not because it's over, just because people are reloading, catching breath, trying to figure out who's left. You listen. You watch. You wait for the next volley. Then it comes. Sharper this time, closer. You duck again. You fire again. The barrel of your rifle is hot. Your shoulders sore. Your fingers are cramping. You want to stop. You don't. There's no glory here. No tactics. Just noise. Just mud. Just one more burst of sound and one more body hitting the ground. You've stopped counting. You've stopped caring. You just hold your position, adjust your aim, and keep going. A runner shows up. Out of breath, mud to his elbows, shouting something about flanking movement. You nod. You don't process. You just nod. He disappears. He might make it. Might not. Doesn't change anything for you. A shell lands too close. You feel the concussion in your teeth. Your head snaps sideways. You hit the ground hard. You lie still for a second. Just to check. You're still alive. Mostly. Your ears are ringing. Your face is covered in mud. You wipe it off, reload, and crawl forward a few feet. The firing starts again. You don't ask when this ends. You've stopped thinking about ends. You just listen. Wait for the gaps. Fire when it's your turn. Press your cheek to the stock. Brace for the kick. Breathe. Fire. Breathe. Fire. Sometimes the shouting switches languages. You hear Japanese voices. Close. Too close. Someone lobs a grenade up the hill. Someone else yells to pull back. You don't. You just keep shooting into trees that shoot back. Eventually the sound changes. Not quieter, just different. Like the tail end of a storm. You recognise it now. This is the part where everyone runs out of ammunition, or courage, or both. You don't stand, you don't move, you wait. Just a little longer. Just in case. Then silence. Real silence. Not complete, but close enough. No more gunfire. Just the crackle of burning leaves and the distant sound of someone moaning. You stay low. You check your gear. Your rifle's caked in mud. Your hands are shaking again. You bite your lip and taste metal. The sergeant finally calls out. You hear him. Barely. Hold position. Like you were planning to do anything else. You look around. Fewer heads than before. Someone's slumped over. Someone else is gone completely. You don't call their names. You just take a breath and wait for the next sound. Because out here, the hills don't echo with music. They echo with gunfire. And you know you'll hear it again tomorrow. The shooting dies down. That's how these days usually go. Burst of terror followed by hours of silence. Not peace. Just quiet enough to hear the real enemy creeping in. It's not a sniper, not a shell. It's water. It's food. It's everything you swallowed yesterday that's deciding to kill you today. Someone's vomiting behind a tree. Hard, fast, loud enough to make your stomach turn. You don't look. You already know. The medics are too tired to pretend it's a one-off. They've seen this before, dozens of times. It's dysentery again, or cholera, or typhoid. The symptoms overlap, doesn't matter which it is. You don't need a diagnosis to know a man's body is folding inward, and he's going to start dropping weight like his bones are trying to leave first. The guy who started puking 2 days ago is now lying in his hole, too weak to move. He's dehydrated, twitching, wrapped in a blanket that smells like everything wrong with this place. The medic's given him salt in water, a few pills, nothing else to do, just wait. Sometimes they pull through. Sometimes you wake up and find the body cold and light as paper. There's no isolation ward, no quarantine. If someone gets sick, they stay where they are. In the mud, surrounded by others, breathing the same air, coughing into the same wind. You try not to think about it. Try not to breathe too deep. Try not to notice when your own stomach cramps for longer than it should. Diarrhea isn't a symptom here. It's a given. Everyone's had it at least once. Some live with it permanently, like it's a new organ they've grown. You dig a latrine trench 20 feet out, if you're lucky. Sometimes closer, if the terrain doesn't cooperate. It doesn't matter. The flies find it. The smell spreads. The germs go wherever they want. One guy passed out while squatting. Fell right into it. Got hauled out by 2 others and hosed down with what little clean water we had. He didn't speak for a day. We didn't joke about it. Not because we're kind. We're not. But because we all knew it could have been any of us. You stop trusting food. You sniff tins before opening them. Tap them with your knuckles. Shake them near your ear like you're listening for landmines. One tiny whiff of rot, and it goes in the burn pile. You'd rather go hungry than risk what comes next. And water. God, the water. You're told to boil it. You're told to filter it. You're told to add purification tablets and let it sit. You do all of that when you can, when there's firewood, when the tablets aren't crumbled, when you're not being shot at. Otherwise you drink what's there. You squint at it, pretend it looks clean, and you swallow fast so you don't taste it. Then you wait. You wait for the headache, the stomach churn, the heat crawling up your back. When it starts, you pretend it's nothing. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe it's just the food. Maybe it's not dysentery, not cholera, not whatever it was that killed 3 men in your unit last week. You try to sleep it off. You fail. Eventually, you run for the trees. Pants down before you've even cleared the brush. It hits fast, violent. You lose everything inside you in minutes. Then your legs go weak. You sit. You lean on your rifle like a crutch and breathe like you just ran a mile uphill in the rain. You tell yourself it's fine. You'll be fine. You're not. You come back to camp pale, shaking, quieter than usual. No one says anything. They've seen the look, the sunken eyes, the way you clutch your stomach and walk like your spine forgot how to straighten. You're on the clock now. If it passes in a day, you live. If not, well, no one makes announcements anymore. The medics are overloaded. Most are barely trained. One used to work in a dentist's office. Now he's expected to save men from bacterial warfare armed with aspirin and cotton swabs. He does his best. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't smile. You trust him more than anyone. He keeps a ledger, not of the dead, of the sick. Who's had what, when it started, whether they've eaten, urinated, stood up without help. The living are harder to track than the corpses. The corpses stay put. There's talk of a hospital tent. There isn't one. Just a stretch of canvas strung between poles, damp from rain, buzzing with flies. The floor's mud. The beds are whatever gear can be spared. If someone's lying there, it means they can't walk. If they can't walk, it's not looking good. You once saw a man cough up blood. Not from a bullet, from the inside. His lungs were going. Maybe dysentery turned septic. Maybe he caught something else. The medic shrugged. It's all mixed, he said. We treat symptoms, the rest decides itself. You hear that phrase a lot. The rest decides itself. You try to stay clean. Wash your hands, rinse your mess tin. Don't share cigarettes, spoons, gear. Then you see someone snot into their palm and use it to rub mud off their rifle stock. And you stop trying. It's not filth. That's everywhere. It's not ignorance. Everyone knows. It's just inevitability. Like bullets, like shrapnel. If the sickness wants you, it'll get you. All you can do is slow it down. One man tried to keep a journal. He was a school teacher before this. Wrote down everything. Temperature, symptoms, dates, observations. Made charts. Tried to track patterns. Like knowledge could beat infection. He died last week. His journal's still there. Soggy, mould creeping in. Ink bleeding across the pages. We didn't throw it out. We just don't open it anymore. Some men stop talking altogether. Lay in their holes, arms across their chests, eyes closed, lips dry. Not sleeping. Just fading. You sprinkle powder into their water. Feed them a spoonful of rice when they're conscious. Wait. Some bounce back. Others go rigid. You bury them quick. Before the smell. Before the flies. No one cries. Not here. Not anymore. You just dig a shallow grave and move on. You start wondering if your own cramps are normal. If your heart beats too fast. If that dizziness is from fatigue or from something already working its way through your blood. You try to remember how long it's been since you last had solid food. Since you didn't feel nauseous after drinking. Since your own hand stopped shaking. You don't remember. You hear more coughing tonight. A rasp from 2 foxholes over. Then retching. Then silence. You close your eyes and grip your rifle tight, like that will keep the germs out. At first it's just a rash, a red patch under your arm or behind your knee. Feels warm, itches a little. Nothing serious, you ignore it. Everything out here itches. You think maybe it's a bug bite or the heat, or just another part of your skin giving up. Then it spreads. By the next day it's cracked open. The skin's gone soft, raw, like something that shouldn't be exposed. The area smells wrong. Damp. Fungal. You poke it. It oozes. You stop poking it. Someone else has the same thing. On his feet. Peeling between the toes, skin grey and slimy, like it's been boiled and left too long. You both go to the medic. He doesn't even blink. Just mutters, "Jungle rot," and hands you a jar of something that looks like expired glue. You apply it twice a day. It stings. Not like antiseptic. More like acid. You hiss every time. You keep applying. Doesn't help much. Your socks are never dry. Your boots are worse. You try rotating pairs. Hanging them by the fire. Stuffing them with leaves. Nothing works. The moisture is inside everything. It seeps. It lingers. It wants to live in your skin and make a home there. You start wrapping the worst spots with cloth. Then tape. Then you stop wrapping altogether when you realise the bandages stay wet longer than your skin would on its own. You try air drying, but there's no sun. Just filtered green light that never fully reaches the ground. The humidity makes sure no part of your body ever dries. Ever. The rot finds your armpits, your groin, your thighs, anywhere warm, anywhere that chafes. You start walking funny, adjusting your stride to reduce friction. It doesn't help. The sores open anyway. You wake up at night, scratching until you bleed. One guy dug into his leg in his sleep and peeled off a flap the size of a cigarette pack. He screamed when he woke up, not from the pain, but from the sight of it. The medic smeared something on it and wrapped it in gauze that stuck to the wound. When they changed it the next day, it peeled off more skin. He passed out. They let him. Another guy had it on his lower back. Couldn't sit down for 3 days. He stood in the rain during meals, eating out of a tin and crying silently. He never asked for help. He just endured. Like we all do. Until he couldn't anymore. Some of the sores get infected. Not lightly. Deep, angry infections that pulse with heat and weep brown fluid. They go from mild irritation to medical emergencies in under 48 hours. You can almost feel the infection spreading under the surface, threading through muscle and tissue like mould through bread. The medic cuts one open with his knife. No anaesthetic, just two men holding the patient down while he screams into his sleeve. The pus pours out like it's been waiting its turn. The smell sends one of the guys holding him retching into the bushes. You all pretend that's unusual. It's not. You keep moving. You keep marching. You keep carrying your gear, your rifle, your pain. But now it's worse. Every step sends a jolt up your leg as the soft skin around the rot flares raw. You try not to limp. Limping means attention. Attention means questions. You don't want those. One man lanced his own sore with a bayonet. Said he didn't want to wait, didn't trust the medic. He wrapped the wound in a rag and poured whiskey over it. It got worse. He hasn't spoken since. Just sits with his back to a tree, eyes glassy, hand twitching every few seconds like he's reliving it. Sometimes the rot meets the blisters. That's a bad combination. The layers of broken skin become breeding grounds. You see things growing there. Threads of white, spots of black, a creeping green tint. You start to feel like you're decomposing while still breathing. One guy's toe turned black. The medic said he might lose it. 2 days later, it fell off in his sock. He didn't even notice until he emptied it out. He laughed. Then he cried. Then he slept for 15 hours straight. You look at your own feet. The skin's gone soft, wrinkled, pale. Looks like wax paper. You poke at it. It doesn't feel like part of your body anymore. You smear on ointment, wrap it in cloth, and tell yourself it'll get better. It won't. Your hands are starting to crack. Not from cold, from wet, between your fingers, your palms, under your nails. You try to keep them dry, but it's pointless. Everything you touch is damp. Your rifle is slick with humidity. Your pack is always dripping. Your blanket smells like mildew and sweat and something sour. You catch yourself sniffing your own shirt and gagging. You're used to the smell of others, but when it's you, it's different. The rot has its own scent. Tangy, acidic, like meat left out in the rain. Some guys make jokes. Jungle rot deluxe. Premium foot stew. One guy drew faces on his blisters with charcoal and introduced them to people. You all laughed. It was funny. Until he stopped eating. Until he started mumbling to himself. Until he collapsed during a patrol and didn't wake up for 6 hours. They didn't send him home. They just moved him to a quieter post. A radio station. Away from people. Away from command. Away from anyone who could file a report. You start wondering if the rot will reach your face. If it will get into your eyes. Your ears. Your mouth. You dream about it sometimes. Peeling away your own skin like wet bark. Waking up with blood in your sheets. Grit in your teeth. You check yourself every morning. Lift your shirt. Pull down your socks. Feel around your shoulders. You find a new patch. Lower back. Soft. Warm. Already itching. You sigh. You scratch it. Knowing full well what comes next. They told you not to rely on them. That's what they said early on. Airdrops are supplemental. Supplemental to what? No one ever explained. But you understood the meaning. Don't count on the sky. Still, every time you hear the distant drone of an engine, you stop. Everyone does. Eyes to the clouds. Like dogs waiting for a treat that's just as likely to explode. You watch the plane arc overhead, slow and steady, indifferent to everything below. You wonder what it's like in there. Dry, clean, with actual seats. maybe even real food. You hate them for a second. Then the bay doors open, crates tumble out. At first just dots, then canvas shoots bloom above them like flowers made of lies. You count them. 1, 2, 5, 12. Some drift in your direction. Others catch the wind and veer off course. You pray, not to God, to gravity, wind patterns, geography, whatever might drop a box of rations into your sector instead of someone else's. You've learned not to cheer until the crates actually land. You've seen too many get tangled in trees. Too many crash into ravines. One burst open mid-air. Someone packed it wrong. Rice exploded like confetti over the jungle. By the time you got there, ants had already moved in. That whole drop became a buffet for the ecosystem. But sometimes the crates make it. You scramble toward them like starving wolves, weapons slung, boots slipping in mud, arms already aching at the thought of dragging them back. You reach the first one. You're breathing hard, not from the run, from the hope, that dangerous, poisonous feeling you thought you'd buried weeks ago. You pry it open. Inside, biscuits, tins, a few boxes of 303 rounds. Maybe socks if you're lucky. There's usually something bizarre. Last week it was shaving cream. 2 full tins. No razors. The week before that, harmonicas. Still in packaging. You don't ask questions anymore. You just redistribute. Food first. Everyone gets some. Doesn't matter who got there first. It's silent agreement. You hoard later. Not now. Right now, everyone gets a handful of crackers. A spoonful of jam. Half a protein bar so old it tastes like chalk. Ammo is next. Counted out, pocketed, swapped for what fits your weapon. Some guys still carry rounds they can't fire. Won't throw them away. They make good trade, or maybe just feel heavier in the right kind of way. Sometimes there's a letter in the crate, typed, a morale thing. Keep up the good work. Your bravery is appreciated. No one reads it aloud. Someone usually burns it. The best drops come with medicine, bandages, tablets, real antiseptic that doesn't smell like gasoline. One time a crate had morphine. The good stuff. You had to lock it away, not because of theft, because some of the guys started looking at it like a backup plan. An escape hatch you jab into your thigh if it all goes to hell too fast. Clothes show up occasionally, always the wrong size, boots 3 sizes too small, shirts cut for a different climate, but you take them anyway, tear them into rags, use them for binding wounds, wrapping rot, plugging holes in your shelter. And then there's the weird drops, the stuff that makes you think no one back home has any idea what's happening here. One crate had umbrellas. Full-sized, collapsible, useless. Someone took one out, popped it open, and got shot 5 minutes later when the sun flashed off the metal spokes. Another had tinned peaches. A whole box. Everyone cried, eating them. You hadn't tasted sweetness in over a month. It felt wrong. Like you were stealing from a life that didn't belong to you anymore. Sometimes the drops land in no man's land, between your position and theirs. You weigh the options. Run for it and risk gunfire, or let it sit and hope no one else gets there first. One guy made the dash. He didn't come back. You watched the crate sit there for 3 more days, unopened, like bait. Eventually the weather changes and the planes stop flying. Fog rolls in, the jungle chokes the sky. And just like that, you're alone again. Back to rations of boiled roots and filtered rain. Back to counting crackers. Back to hunger. When the rain clears, the planes come back. But never on schedule. Never when you actually need them. They arrive on their own time, their own logic. Like gods who don't answer prayers but occasionally throw down a half-eaten apple and call it divine mercy, you learn to stop expecting anything. That way, when a crate drops with something useful, you're surprised. Not grateful, just surprised. Gratitude died around the same time as your third case of dysentery. Someone once got a crate full of letters. Dozens. All addressed to the wrong unit. They sat in camp for days, unopened, until a bored corporal started reading them aloud. They were from mothers mostly. Wives, kids, talking about home, the weather, things that don't exist out here. He stopped halfway through one, just folded it up and walked into the trees. He came back eventually. No one said anything. Some guys write their own letters and stuff them into outgoing drops, hoping someone somewhere reads them. Most don't. It's more ritual than communication. A way to pretend someone's listening. And then, of course, there are the crashes. Planes that don't make it. You've seen smoke on the horizon, wreckage in the treetops. Once, a supply plane went down a few miles north. You helped carry out what was left of the crew. Not much. What was strange was the cargo, crates of soda bottles, not even sealed. Half of them smashed. You picked glass shards out of your palms for days. You never find out what went wrong. You just watch the next one glide over, smaller than a toy, belly open, packages tumbling out. You run. You open. You dig through the debris and ration wrappers and empty tins for something that matters. Sometimes you find it, most times you don't. Most. The first time you hear it, it's distant. A shout. Not words really, just noise. High-pitched, fast, like something tearing. It echoes through the trees, and you think maybe it's birds, or wind, or some animal you haven't met yet. Then it happens again, closer, and someone says it, Banzai. It doesn't sound like much, just a word. You heard about it in briefings. Aggressive charges, they said, desperate, final efforts, human waves. You imagined something chaotic, yes, but manageable. Like something out of a film. Maybe brave, maybe stupid. You didn't understand. Now you do. Because the next thing you hear is feet, dozens of them, hitting mud, branches snapping, grunts, screams, bayonets clashing. And then you see them. And you realise this isn't a tactic. It's a decision to die. And take as many of you with them as possible. They come fast, always at night. Always after you've started to believe maybe this one, this time, will be quiet. They come in groups, but not like formations. No lines, no flanks, just motion. Faces twisted, teeth bared, rifles with blades fixed, and no intention of using them to block. You fire. Everyone fires. There's no warning, just instinct. You pull the trigger and keep pulling. The jungle lights up with muzzle flashes. You can't hear your own gun. You can't hear anything at all. Just the thudding of boots and the roars that don't stop until they do. Your first shot hits someone. You know it does. They go down, but not like a clean fall. More like a stumble. Then someone else trips over them. Then more behind them keep coming. They don't hesitate, they don't duck, they don't even slow down. You drop one, then another, then another. Your rifle jams. You clear it without thinking. The guy next to you is firing so fast he's stopped aiming, just pointing and shooting and reloading by muscle memory. They get close, too close. You switch to your bayonet. You don't want to. You're not ready. But they're in your trench now, in your hole, on top of you. It becomes personal. You stab. Not gracefully, not cleanly, just forward. They stab back. Someone gets hit. You don't see who. You hear the gurgle, the wet sound of someone bleeding into the dirt. You push, you yell, you bite. You don't remember half of it. Then it stops. Suddenly, horribly, it just stops. What's left of them either retreats or lies still. The moans fade, the shouting dies. You're left breathing in mud, in blood, in something thicker than air. And then the quiet comes again. No victory, no celebration. Just silence you don't trust. You check your hands. You're bleeding. Somewhere. Maybe not yours. You pat yourself down, trying to find the wound. It doesn't matter. You'll find out later. Or you won't. Someone's missing. You notice, then forget, then notice again. You whisper a name, no answer. You check the foxholes one by one. You find a helmet, nothing in it. You keep moving. You step over bodies. Some aren't whole. Some are barely human anymore. The adrenaline's still high, but your knees shake. Your mouth is dry. You feel like throwing up. You don't. You've been through 3 of these already. This makes 4. Each time they get closer. Each time they seem less afraid. You wonder what they're told. What makes a person run into a wall of gunfire and keep going? You stop wondering. It's easier not to ask. Later when you sleep, if you sleep, you hear the word again in your dreams. Not shouted. Whispered. A sound at the edge of your consciousness, like a reminder. You jolt awake. You check your bayonet. You breathe into your sleeve. You count the seconds since the last time you had to kill someone. You try not to remember the last face you saw, but you do. Eyes wide, jaw slack. Blood spilling out like it was waiting for permission. He didn't look angry. He looked empty. That's what you remember. You go back to your post, reset your gear, reposition the sandbags, reinforce the edge of your trench, because they'll do it again. They always do. It always starts the same way. Gunfire from somewhere it shouldn't be. Close, familiar, wrong. You're trained to react to enemy fire, to duck, to return, to survive. You're not trained for what happens when the bullets come from the people wearing the same uniform as you. The first time it happens, you think maybe you misheard, that the echo off the hills is playing tricks again. You fire back into the jungle, into the trees, doing what you're supposed to. Then the guy 2 holes over takes a round to the leg, and someone screams, "That's ours!" And then you understand. There's confusion. Every time. No one plans for this. No one admits it, not right away. The officers shout into radios that barely work, trying to confirm who's where, who's firing, and whether it's possible we've just shot one of our own. Again. It is. It's always possible. The jungle doesn't care about lines. The terrain makes maps useless. One hill looks like another. One trail forks 3 ways and loops around itself. You've circled back to your own position before without realising. You almost got shot that time too. Night makes it worse, especially after a Banzai charge. Everyone's wired, jumpy. A twig snaps, and someone opens up with a Bren gun. You don't blame them. Last time it was a twig, it wasn't a twig. But this time it's just a guy named Tom stumbling back from latrine duty. And now he's dead. No one writes that report honestly. Enemy action, it says. Everyone nods. Sometimes it's worse. A mortar team misreads the coordinates. You hear the soft thump, and you don't flinch, not at first. You've been hearing that sound for weeks. Then the shell lands 20 metres behind you, right where the medical tent was. Or the ammo stockpile. Or the comms setup. One boom, and everything goes sideways. The guy in charge of that battery gets reassigned. Not punished, not reprimanded. Just quietly moved. Because mistakes happen. Out here, mistakes scream and catch fire and don't get up again. You stop trusting the air support too. They drop bombs when visibility is low. The jungle canopy hides everything, including you. One mission, they hit a ridge they thought was crawling with Japanese. Turned out to be crawling with us. The smoke was visible for a mile. They called it a miscommunication. 4 men were left unrecognisable. You buried what you could find. Some of it didn't match up. There's a kind of silence that follows friendly fire. Not the usual silence. Not the one after a firefight, where you breathe heavy and feel lucky to still have lungs. This is different. It's ashamed. Heavy. No one speaks. You clean your rifle. You adjust your gear. You don't look anyone in the eye. Everyone wants to blame someone else. The gunners, the guy calling targets, the maps, the fog, the terrain. Sometimes it's easier to blame the guy who died. Should have spoken up. Should have signalled. Should have moved slower. Should have worn something brighter. No one says that out loud, but you hear it anyway. You've seen a guy try to wave off a patrol. Stood up, hands in the air, shouting, "Friendly! Friendly!" Got shot twice. Once in the chest, once in the neck. Didn't even fall forward. Just crumpled, like a puppet with the strings cut. The patrol froze. Someone whispered, "Oh God." Then everyone turned away. The worst part is the second guessing. Every sound, every shadow. Is it them? Is it us? Do you wait? Do you challenge? Do you shoot first? Because if it's the enemy and you hesitate, you're dead. If it's your own and you don't, they are. You stop hesitating. That's what they don't tell you. You'd rather shoot your own than be caught hesitating when it really is the enemy. You feel that shift inside yourself. A quiet, mechanical adjustment. Safety off. Ask questions later. Ask no questions, maybe. Just clean your rifle and reload. You get told to identify your targets. But that assumes you can see them. That assumes the fog's cleared, the lighting's good, the uniforms are clean, and the situation is calm. None of those things exist out here. Uniforms get muddy. Helmets get swapped. People go missing and return from the wrong direction. The guy approaching you might be a runner, or a scout, or a Japanese soldier holding a British rifle. You don't know. You have 3 seconds to decide, sometimes less. The last incident was yesterday. A forward patrol moved faster than expected. Someone mistook them for Japanese. 2 of them went down before the rest managed to wave a piece of white cloth. By then, it didn't matter. One was still breathing when they dragged him back. You don't know if he made it. You're not sure anyone's asked. You sleep lighter now. Not because of the enemy. Because of us. Because of our own. One night, during a storm, someone opened fire on their own unit by mistake. Lightning flashed, someone moved, and that was it. 3 men injured. 1 dead. The shooter hasn't spoken since. He just sits there, helmet low, cleaning a rifle he might never fire again. There's no safety here. No real coordination. No margin for error. And every man out here is 1 mistake away from being killed by his own side. You still call them friendlies. That's the word. That's the term. But it doesn't mean what it used to. It just means the direction the bullet was supposed to be facing. Doesn't mean it was. There are firefights that last minutes, bombardments that shake the ground and leave your ears ringing, screaming charges, surprise attacks, close calls. But those moments, as bad as they are, end. The thing no one warns you about, the part that really digs in and starts hollowing you out, is what happens between them. The waiting. Not rest, not downtime, not recovery, just waiting. a slow, silent gnawing that creeps into your bones and won't let go. You lie in your hole, rifle across your chest, boots half laced, because if something happens, you'll have to move fast, but probably not fast enough. You shift your weight, listen, nothing, just the jungle. Bugs, maybe a bird, maybe not. You count the seconds, lose track, start again. There's always the idea that something is coming. Not a maybe, not a possibility, just a when. You've convinced yourself it's out there. You've felt it too many times not to know. The pause before something awful, the stillness that means movement. You tense your shoulders. You breathe slower. You wait. You're told to stay alert. Every hour, every shift. But no one can stay alert forever. So you drift. Not sleep, just drifting. Your eyes stay open, your mind doesn't. You think about home, but not the people. Just details. A kitchen tile. The sound your bed used to make. The taste of real butter. And then a twig snaps. In your back. Rifle up, eyes wide, heart racing. It was probably an animal, maybe wind, maybe not. You never know. You won't know until it's over. Or until it's not. Some guys hum to themselves, just under their breath. Some dig into the dirt with sticks, making little trenches, lines, marks. Others sharpen their knives obsessively, over and over, not because they need to, but because doing nothing is worse. You check your ammo again. Same count. Hasn't changed. You check your canteen. Lighter than yesterday. You feel your thigh. Still bandaged. Still damp. Still stinging. You think about asking the medic for more antiseptic, then don't. Someone whispers, "They're out there." Not a question. Not a warning. Just a statement. No one responds. Everyone's already thinking it. When you're under attack, you don't have time to think. You react. You move. You scream. You shoot. You live or don't. But in the waiting, all you have is time. To imagine how it will happen. When? Where? How close they'll get before you notice. Whether your rifle will jam. Whether they'll kill the guy next to you first, or if you'll see it coming. You stop blinking so much. You squint at the trees. You convince yourself you saw something. Then you didn't. Then you do. The shadows play tricks. The light shifts. You think you hear breathing. You don't. Or you do. Someone suggests a game. Word associations. Memory tests. It lasts 5 minutes. Then everyone goes quiet again. The silence is louder. You don't ask what time it is. No one carries watches anymore. They broke, or stopped, or were pawned off for chocolate weeks ago. The sun is your only clue, and even that barely works out here. Sometimes it's bright. Sometimes it's just a weird green haze and a sky full of clouds that don't move. The radio crackles. You sit up, wait. One word comes through, nothing useful. Static returns. You lie back down. You start to itch again. Maybe the rot's spreading. Maybe it's just your nerves. You scratch anyway, then regret it. You think about moving positions, but you don't. Too much effort. Too dangerous. Too pointless. You stay where you are. Shift your legs. Adjust the strap digging into your shoulder. You haven't spoken out loud in hours. And then someone fires. One shot. Everyone freezes. You wait for return fire. None comes. It was probably a test, or a warning, or a mistake. You won't ask. You feel like you're rotting from the inside out. Not from infection. From stillness. The stillness eats you. You'd almost prefer an attack. At least then something would happen. You'd have a reason to run, to scream, to move, anything. But it doesn't come. Not yet. They say it's a victory. That's the word being passed down through radios, and lips too tired to care anymore. You hear it whispered like it means something. Like it should change anything about the place you're sitting in. You're still in the same hole. Still soaked. Still hungry. Still coughing something out of your lungs that tastes like metal and mould. The jungle didn't open up and applaud. The mud didn't dry. No one stood up and declared anything. There were no trumpets, no flags waving, no general shaking hands. Just silence. And then, slowly, the crawling realisation that the attacks have stopped. That's it. That's your victory. You don't even know when it happened exactly. The days blur. At some point they stopped charging. The shelling went quiet. The voices in the trees faded. You woke up and noticed you hadn't had to shoot anyone in a few days. Then someone said the Japanese were retreating. It doesn't feel like winning. You look around and see fewer people than before. The ones who made it aren't smiling. They're not cheering. Most of them are lying down, not moving much. Some still bleeding. Some staring. One guy's been cleaning the same rifle for 6 hours. There's nothing left to clean. The ones who can walk start packing. Not because it's over, because it's time to move. There's always somewhere else to be. Even when you've barely survived this one, they give you a boiled potato, a real one. You eat it with your hands. Don't even peel it. Dirt and all. It tastes like a miracle. You finish it in 4 bites and immediately wish you hadn't. Now you miss it. Now you know what you've been missing. A letter arrives. Congratulations, it says. The campaign was a success. You don't remember the last time you read a sentence that felt less true. You fold it. Don't tear it. Just fold it into smaller and smaller squares until it disappears in your pocket. No one talks about what comes next. You ask someone, an officer maybe, what the next orders are. He shrugs. Says something about regrouping, reinforcing, consolidating gains. You nod like that makes sense. It doesn't. The walking wounded get priority. Carried out in stretchers, loaded onto trucks if there are any left that run. The rest of you? You wait. Again. Still. Always. You start to notice things now that the gunfire's stopped. The smell for one. It never really left, but now it's louder. Bodies still hidden under brush. Latrines that overflowed days ago, rot, infection. Jungle reclaiming what's left behind. You helped bury a man who was killed 2 weeks ago. No one knew. He was half covered in leaves, face bloated, eyes missing. You wrap him in a tarp and dig a shallow grave. There's no prayer, just dirt. The shovel's handle snaps halfway through. You finish with your hands. There's talk of medals. Not to you. Higher-ups. Unit commendations. Campaign ribbons. You imagine what that looked like. Some clerk back home pinning a bit of coloured fabric to a stack of paperwork while you scrape mould off your boots with a bayonet. Your skin is still broken. Your feet are still raw. Your chest rattles when you breathe. You look down and realise your uniform is hanging off your body like a curtain. You've lost weight. You don't know how much. You just know your belt is on the last notch, and it's still loose. You sit with a guy who hasn't spoken since the last charge. He watches the tree line like it might open up again. His hands twitch. His jaw moves like he's chewing, but there's nothing in his mouth. You leave him alone. There's nothing to say. The doctors come in now. The real ones. Clipboard, clean boots, pressed sleeves. They ask questions like, "How are you feeling?" and "Any troubling thoughts?" You lie. Everyone lies. No one wants to be the one pulled aside and labelled unfit. That doesn't mean help. That means transfer. Or worse, getting sent home as a problem, not a soldier. Because that's the joke. You win, and they don't send you home. They send you forward. To the next hellhole, the next ridge, the next campaign. Imphal and Kohima were just names on a map. Now they're ashes behind you. Next will be something else. Something worse. You don't know how to go back anyway. What would you even do? Sit on a train? Walk into a room with painted walls and pretend the air doesn't smell wrong? Shake hands with someone who says, "Thank you for your service," and looks you in the eye like they understand? You won't tell them about the rot, the dysentery, the bayonets, the nights you spent wondering if the sound you just heard was real or just your brain keeping busy. You won't talk about the kid you shot by accident, or the one you had to leave behind, or the way you started seeing things in the trees that weren't there, and sometimes still do. You'll just nod, say it was hard, say you were proud, say nothing else. The next morning you wake up and expect the attack again. Your fingers are on the trigger before you realise it's silent. Still silent. You won. Apparently. If that's what this is. You thought getting out would feel like something. Like waking up from a nightmare, maybe. Or surfacing from underwater. You imagined yourself on a truck. Or a plane. Or a boat. Looking back at the place that tried to kill you and knowing you'd made it. It didn't happen like that. You left quietly. No music, no send-off, no speech. 1 minute you were in a mud pit chewing a biscuit that tasted like dirt. The next, someone handed you a folded paper with your name on it and said, "Rotation!" That was it. You didn't celebrate, you didn't smile. You just packed what little you still had. A few tins, your rifle, a photo you stopped looking at weeks ago. You didn't even say goodbye. What would you say? Hope you're alive next month? Thanks for not shooting me in the back. You were flown out in a transport plane that smelled like oil and rubber. The seats were metal. The noise was deafening. You stared at your boots the whole flight. The guy next to you threw up. You didn't move. Didn't say anything. Just sat there, vibrating, like your nerves hadn't realised it was over. The next stop was a field hospital. For evaluation. They checked your weight, your blood, your teeth. Someone poked at the sores on your back and scribbled notes. Another person asked if you were sleeping. You said yes. That was a lie. They didn't ask how many people you killed, or how many times you thought about dying. They didn't ask if you could still hear the screaming. The real kind, and the kind that came from inside your own head when it was quiet for too long. You were issued new clothes. They didn't fit. Too clean. Too stiff. They itched. You missed the uniform you'd bled into. When you finally got back to wherever they sent you, a base or a port or a town that hadn't seen a fight in years, everything felt wrong. Too bright. Too fast. The roads were smooth. The buildings were whole. The people were loud and untouched and smiling like nothing had ever happened. You walked down the street and felt like a ghost. No one looked twice. You were just another uniform. Another piece of war tucked into the corner of someone else's piece. Someone asked you where you were stationed. You said, "Imphal." They blinked. "Is that in Europe?" "No," you said. "Burma, India, jungle." They nodded like they understood. They didn't. You tried to sleep. Couldn't. The bed was too soft. The pillow too clean. You missed the mud. The pressure of the rifle under your arm. The quiet breathing of a man beside you who might not be breathing tomorrow. Here the silence was wrong. It wasn't alert. It was empty. You started seeing movement out of the corner of your eye. A shadow across the hallway. A flicker by the fence. You knew it wasn't real. That didn't matter. You still reached for a weapon that wasn't there. You flinched at firecrackers. You froze at loud voices. A backfiring truck made you duck behind a bench. You told yourself to stand up. Your legs didn't listen. There was a program, they said. Some kind of adjustment thing. Group meetings. Men sitting in circles, drinking coffee they didn't taste, talking about what they remembered. You went once, sat in the back, didn't say anything. A guy across from you mentioned the smell of blood. You nodded. He saw it. You nodded again. You never went back. You drank instead. Not much at first, then more, then just enough to blur the edges. It didn't work, not really, but it made the nights pass faster. You didn't have nightmares when you passed out. You didn't remember anything at all. You tried to write a letter to the family of a friend who didn't make it. Stared at the page for hours. Wrote 3 words. Tore it up. Started again. Tore that one up too. Eventually, you stopped trying. What could you even say? He died well? No one dies well in the jungle. They just die. People asked if you were okay. You said yes. Of course. Smiled. Nodded. That's what they wanted. You gave it to them. They said you were strong. Brave. You didn't feel either. You started counting things. Doors. Windows. Seconds. Anything to anchor your brain to the moment. Sometimes it helped. Sometimes not. You woke up once standing in the hallway, barefoot, hands clenched. No idea how you got there. You didn't sleep after that. You carried it with you. All of it. The rot, the blood, the noise, the smell, the long stretches of nothing between moments that tried to kill you. You didn't talk about it. You didn't forget it. You just wore it like a second skin. People think surviving means the war is behind you. It's not. It's just moved in. No one says it out loud, but you feel it. The way everyone avoids looking back. The way the jungle becomes something they don't mention anymore. As if not talking about it makes it smaller. As if it wasn't real. You walk past other soldiers, fresh ones, uniforms still stiff, boots still clean, and no one tells them what really happened. You just nod. Maybe say good luck. Then move on. There's paperwork now. Commendations, citations. A medal maybe. A ribbon you'll lose in a drawer. Someone hands you a certificate like that makes any of it mean something. They call it service, call it honour, call it victory. You call it what it was, hot, wet, loud, and impossible to scrub out of your skull. The historians will write about the strategy, the choke points, the clever flanking manoeuvres, the airlift, the siege, the turning point in the Burma campaign. None of them were there. They'll praise the leadership, the bravery, the logistics. They won't write about the rot between your toes, the maggots in the rice, the man who bled out calling for his mother in a language you didn't understand. You keep your mouth shut. That's part of it too. There's a ceremony if you're lucky, a folded flag, a band that plays something slow, words from people who weren't there. They'll call it necessary, justified, critical to the outcome. You stand still. You don't clap. You just stare straight ahead and wait for it to end. You hear that some units are being rotated back in. Fresh waves, but also familiar names. Guys you served with who should be home, but they're not. They've signed up again. Or maybe they were told to. You're not sure which is worse. Going back by choice or going back because someone decided your time wasn't up yet. You bump into someone from your old unit at a train station. Neither of you says much. Just a look. A tired nod. He's thinner than you remember. You're both still walking, and that counts for something. You talk about the weather. About food. Not about what happened. That part stays buried. but it doesn't stay gone. Sometimes, late at night, you hear it again. The sounds. Not in dreams. Just there. Somewhere in the back of your skull. The way the leaves crackled under boots. The slap of a bayonet pulled free. The half-sob of a man trying not to scream. The sound of your own heartbeat when you realised you were the last one still firing. You keep moving. That's all you can do. You get a job. Or you don't. You sit on a bench and watch cars go by. You try to eat normal food and feel nothing. You try to sleep on a real bed and feel less. You learn how to nod at people when they talk about their day. You nod a lot. And deep down, you know, we'll do it again. Not you, maybe. Maybe you're done. Maybe your body gives out first. But someone will. Some other kid. Another jungle. Another speech. Another set of coordinates with a name that sounds like nothing until it becomes everything. They'll call it something new. Not Imphal, not Kohima. Somewhere else. Somewhere important, strategic, essential. They'll say we have to go, that we have no choice. That this is the last time. It won't be, because we always do it again. That's it for tonight. If you're still awake, maybe don't think too hard about anything you just heard. That was the Battle of Imphal and Kohima, or at least the version no one puts on the plaques. No glory, no triumph. Just rot, rain and survival. Barely. And remember, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does tend to reload. Good night.